Welcome to another episode of The Next Generation. I am so grateful that you are in watching with us today or listening on whatever podcast platform you are on. Today, I have the amazing Adele Schott with me today. She is a amazing woman who's going to be talking about secession and agriculture, especially a women's role in that secession, and then also just ranch life and everything like that as well. She is on the western side of the United States, so a little bit of a different ranching landscape, you could say, than what we are here experiencing in Kansas for me personally. But she does so much with her family's ranch and kind of taking that over, everything from having some direct to selling to consumer beef, and then also some agritourism things and just everything else like that. Along with that, she is a mama and just an amazing entrepreneur. And I am so excited to hear from Adele today and just be able to share her wealth of wisdom with all of you guys and just listen in on this amazing conversation. So Adele, please take it away and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Lauren. That was such a flattering introduction. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here too. Thanks for having me. And I'll try to make my how did I get back to the ranch story short. But I think like a lot of kids that grow up in small towns and in a place where, you know, I call this like the land of 1,000 mothers, right? You're always under a microscope and you don't know that that's actually a huge, blessing until you leave. And I never thought I'd come back. And when I was a teenager, I left a lot and lived in big places and different places. And I feel really lucky that I had this place and that this felt like an option, not an obligation as much as it can. I think my parents were really good about always telling my brother and I that, making sure we knew like, if this is what you want, that's great. If not, it's okay. And both of us felt like that was mostly true. Like you hear that and they mean it. At the same time, you always hold this, like, I can't be the one who lets the ship go down. Right. Mm-hmm. So as I went out and about in the world, I always held that and eventually decided I really just wanted to go out in the world and collect as much knowledge and wisdom and skills so that I could come back and run this ranch the best way possible. So I worked primarily in restaurants and on ranches and just kind of avoided winters. I spent a lot of time in the South and in California and in Mexico and anywhere that wasn't cold and that would have me for a season here and there. And then once I decided I was ready to have kiddos, I just couldn't imagine doing that any other way in any other place than here, than home. And now I live, I'm on the ranch. I'm the 5th generation. I took over completely about 3 or 4 years ago. There's always a gray area. So it's been happening for about 5 years. When the torch got passed is not like there wasn't a moment, but it's happened somehow anyways. And raising my kids on the same little chunk of dirt that I got to run around on and just still trying not to be the one that lets it sink.
I fully understand that. And there can be a lot of pressure behind that sometimes too. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that portion of your story. I would love to hear a little bit more about like your experiences off the ranch and kind of that process of leaving to come back. I feel like sometimes it's really important to leave, because then it makes us realize what we have. And it makes us, it also just gives us a really great amount of worldly knowledge and everything like that. So I would love to hear about just kind of like your experience doing that. I know that you just cowboyed on a bunch of ranches and I hear you're a pretty good hand and just different things like that. And would just love to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. I think that started, that leaving and being okay with leaving. I got to go on exchange in high school. So I spent my junior year of high school in Argentina.
Oh, wow.
So I actually, yeah. So thinking that I was too big for my small town of, 1,800 people. And then I lived in Buenos Aires, which was 11 million people at the time, was mind blowing and so good for me, though. Really brave of my parents, but, to get to kind of go from, we went to cattle shows or we've been to a lot of ropings and that was my traveling experience, to then watching their 15-year-old get on a plane to South America and be like, we'll see you in a year, was amazing. But it gave me, my brother did the same thing, and it gave us this travel bug and also just this confidence of being ourselves outside of our family in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that with me, and I did work on a lot of ranches, which I also think is so important. If you grew up on a family ranch, I got to learn from my neighbors a little bit, but you really do go to one school of ranching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went and worked for places that were very, very different from what we do. We, have been grass-fed, organic, all the things for a really long time. And I worked on big yearling operations where we spayed heifers and put growth hormones in and took like the, singles out of sale yards and like gave them Micatil straight off the truck,
Mm-hmm.
I worked on those outfits. I worked on big desert outfits where you never fix a fence, right? You just get to trot on your horse. And like, there's people that fix fence and do all your irrigation and fix your trucks for you and all those things. It was a new experience. I learned something from every single person I ever worked with. I learned something from every single boss I had, every different landscape I got to see. And I got to decide what I took with me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take it all. But it made me such a better rancher, such a better cowboy. And then on the other half, working in restaurants is where I spent, the other half of my life. And I went to culinary school in Austin, Texas, and I've worked as a private chef. I've worked as a waitress a lot. I've been a bartender. I've been a line cook. I have been an intern where I like cleaned squid and garlic and rolled meatballs for just hours on end. But all of that living out there, when I came back, I was really ready to put both feet on the ground. And I did come back on and off in between there. When my brother was deployed in Iraq, I came home. It just felt like kind of the right thing to do. Didn't want to be away from my family. We felt like we kind of needed that extra support. I came back after my own failure once when I was just, sometimes you go out the world and you're not successful, right? So I made mistakes and kind of hit the bottom of the barrel a little bit and came home and put my head down and worked, just like went back to digging ditches and feeding cows and got my head straight again, and then tried it again, went back out in the world and did something different. So, now I'm able to work with restaurants, and sell beef and run a ranch. And I couldn't have done that without all of those crazy jobs and places and people that helped me out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's so much knowledge to be gained from outside of our comfort zone and outside of what we have always known. I would love to, like, has your guys' operation kind of changed since you've brought all of that new experience back? Like, what ways did you kind of change maybe what had already been done for generations, or just how did that worldly experience or just experience of seeing other people's operations or ranches or failing forward and all of those different sorts of things kind of develop the ranch that you have now?
Yeah, it definitely did. And I think we've always, as a family business here, my mom is the one who's running the ranch, and she was a single mom most of our childhood, and she always included us in all the decisions on the ranch, and was really open with us about what she was doing and why. And in return, we got to have input too. And whether she took it or not was kind of anyone's guess. But throughout that time when I was away, I was in constant communication. I sometimes felt like a double agent. I was like working for these other outfits, and I'd call home and be like, ooh, they do this and this and this here. It works really well, and we should try that too. Or have you considered that? And, as a 22-year-old, like out on a big desert outfit for my first time, I'd call home and tell her all the what fors that we were doing wrong, and she's like, okay, honey, give it a couple decades and then we'll see. But I think what I brought home really aligned with my mom's set of values. My mom has always been really adaptive, really innovative, really forward thinking, really flexible with moving and changing to whatever we needed to do. I didn't have that experience that I know some of my peers do of like, this is how we do it here. This is how it's been done here. This is how it will always be done here. And I didn't have to break through that. What I did have to break through was just timing and trying to kind of step out of her shadow. Right. Yeah. So, trying to figure out how to both make my mom and all the generations before me, proud, but also it be my own. Right. So it had to be something that I believed in and that I wanted to do. And so for me, what I want the most is food. So what I think I brought home the most is this focus towards food versus just ranching. So that move towards selling our meat to restaurants was mostly the big change that I brought to the table. And that was a shift from doing what we were doing, which was quarter, half whole direct sale to consumers. And my cup does not get filled in the same way that my mom's cup gets filled with looking someone in the eye and handing them a box of beef. Just like, I think it's beautiful and wonderful, and I so appreciate our customers that we have, but my heart is in restaurants and food service and being a little closer to creating that product that someone's eating. Like I want to feed you, and like get a little closer to feeding you. Yeah. And so, I think that's a lot of what I brought home. And then just little things like, here's a new way to tie a knot.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think that a lot of us are so blessed to grow up with parents that are open to those sorts of things. And then I know that me as well, I have a lot of peers that they're on 6th or 7th generation ranches, and this is the way they've always done it. And that's the way they're going to continue to do it. And I think it's really awesome that you were able to go out and get that experience, but then also just be able to bring some of it home. You guys do things a little bit differently as far as the fact that you guys have been organic and grass-fed and and all of those things for quite a while.
Mhm.
And then also you guys don't have a registered Black Angus herd or a Hereford herd or anything like that. I would love for you to share a little bit more about that journey and kind of the Corianti beef that you guys sell and just a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that does set us apart. So, and it happened by accident mostly. So growing up, we loved to rope. We were, we spent 2 nights a week at least in the arena, team roping together. It's what we did. And so we always had a little bunch of Corianis to play with. And then I feel like lots of ranch kids will get this. You don't eat your prime steers, right? You eat like the cold cow or like whatever is the cheapest, scrappiest, something that died, that's what's in your freezer, right? With elk and deer. So we always ate Coriani because they're cheap. And they weren't worth much once we were done roping them, right? You get these big roped out steers, they're slow and big and they're just not worth very much. And so we ate them. We loved the meat. Then we started giving it to our neighbors. Then their neighbors told their friends. And all of a sudden we kind of had this like weird demand for Coriani beef. And at the time we were still running a commercial herd, right? And it was just like this little side thing. And that happens, right? You have this little side thing that you don't consider your business, but it's actually what's making you money, and it's actually what's working. It's actually what's in demand. And all of a sudden there'll be this click of like, oh, what if we lean more in that direction, right? And then the other cool thing that little bunch that we were still running of Corianis were doing is we throw them up on the side hills. So we have a little bit of irrigated bottoms, but a lot of this country is really rough. It's steep and rangy, and they're like goats, they don't care. They'll go up there. They'd winter out longer. We didn't have to they had no inputs. I mean, we were like throwing some wormer on them every other year. They're just hardy. And so all of that was, we just kind of really slow burn, gradually built up this customer base of that wanted this meat. It was lined up with, this is, oh my gosh, probably 15, 20 years ago, right? So it started to line up with that trend that was happening of people wanting a healthier beef product. The steaks are smaller, they're lean. They were grass-fed because why would you grain-fed a Coriani? They're not going to gain anyways. You're just wasting your money. And so we were able to kind of accidentally fall onto that path, and it all just lined out, and we started selling off the commercial herd a little bit at a time and buying more Corianis. And then they work for a living their whole lives, right? So we can lease out these cattle. We tell our customers they're professional athletes. They go out there, work for a living. We get paid almost their whole lives. They come back, we put them on our own grass, and then sell them as meat. So for us, it just all started to make sense. And they're such a fun animal to raise. They're fast, and they're willing to go in places that make it kind of fun to ride into and work dogs on. And they've just been a pleasure to have, and we probably won't ever go back the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you guys fully Coriani now rather than having any commercial cattle? Wow. Yep. That's a really big step.
Yeah. I say that, and then this is part of that succession part that we've done, is for my mom to be able to step aside. This isn't a huge place, right? We don't have a big, giant place. And when you're trying to figure out how to have multiple families on an outfit, it's like, where's their room, right? And all of us are pretty resistant to the town job. So we're trying to figure that out. And in order for my mom to kind of make that room, she sold her cow-calf operation. So
Mm-hmm.
she sold out of all the cows, all the calves, bulls, everything. And it was, it was a really nice registered herd of Corrientes that she'd spent a long time perfecting those genetics on and building to, you cull all the bad ones and you love them, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when she was trying to make that decision and she was really struggling with that part. She's like, but I work so hard at this. Like,
Yeah.
I built this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just told her, like, good job. You did such a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Selling them doesn't mean that you failed or that you didn't do
Yeah.
a good job or that you didn't accomplish this amazing thing. It's just the next thing that we're doing, right? So with that pocket of money, that was, her way to kind of be able to move to the next thing, which means then I have to kind of start from scratch, right? So I pay her a lease on the ranch. And I buy the same contractors that we were selling those Corriente calves to. I now buy their roped out cattle and run them just when the grass is growing, right? So I get them here in a week or so, and they'll all be done by December. And then I run outside cattle, so I custom graze as well to help cover the cost of the lease. So we do have commercial cattle on the place again. They're just not ours, and it's just making it work.
Yeah, it just looks a little bit different than maybe you would originally envision it looking in a perfect world or stuff like that. But I think that we are raised in such an amazing way we make it work and we find ways to make it work. And I think I very much resonated with the fact of your family being very resistant to the in-town job and stuff like that. And because of that, you figured it out. Like, that was your only option. You didn't have the backup option or things like that. And every once in a while I'm listening to the podcast as we're going and I'm like, oh, that's going to be a social media clip. And what you said about your mom not failing, like, good job. You did amazing. You did not fail with this, but it's just time for the next step. It's time for the next generation to come in, and the next for you to not have to be out in the middle of dead winter trudging through 10 feet of snow and taking care of this operation. Like, I want you to be able to, in a sense, retire and to be able to kind of take a step back and enjoy your grandkids and enjoy life in a different way. Right? So I love how you talked about that.
Yeah. And I'm, again, so lucky that she didn't hang on until she was, 105. And I, and then like say, okay, now here's your chance. And it's like, I'm tired and old now too, it's like, I really want to see more of that, like, making room. It doesn't have to be giving up. It doesn't have to be stepping away. It doesn't have to be selling out. It doesn't have to be an end, but it is a big step to make room when your kids are at that age when, like, I've got all the scrappiness I'm ever going to have right now, right? Like, this time of being in my mid-30s is like, this is when I have like this naive, just go get them sense of I can do this, and with the like enough backing, right? So it's I'm not 20 and that kind of naiveness coming in, but I'm ready. And this is the same time that, my mom kind of came back to the ranch too. And I think she recognized that. And I'm so grateful that she did that, and she did make room, and she's in Spain right now. So
that's awesome. I want to be in Spain right now.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know, eating paella and going to the bullfights today. So there's perks for her too of making that decision and move. So
Yeah, absolutely. Can you expand a little bit more just on secession and coming back to the ranch and the topic of kind of making room and what that looks like? Because that is not an easy transition, especially for someone that they look at their herd and they look at their operation and they're like, I have put my literal heart, soul, and blood into this ranch and into these cattle. And in a sense, kind of handing the torch over or making room or stuff like that can be really hard and really difficult. So I'd love to hear
Yeah.
kind of like your perspective on that.
Yeah. It is really, really hard. And when we talk about succession, we've done a lot of the technical things well, and I absolutely preach to those, get yourself a good lawyer, a good accountant, set up your business so that it's low risk and it's able to move through to the next generation. And please always be open about your finances, and all that stuff is really important. But what I really like talking to people about is the like emotional side and the ego side of succession. That's, I think, honestly, more challenging. I mean, how many ranchers do you know that without being a rancher, what are they? Like, if that feeling of like, if I don't have this, if I'm not doing this, if I'm not of this place and this operation, what am I? I have nothing, right? That feeling of the generation that's there in that place. I think that the generation that's coming up with that angst and that like chomping at the bit, just let me have a chance, really needs to sit in those shoes of that feeling of like, how could I possibly let this go? This is what I love to do. What else would I want to do? Also, how do I make it? Like financially, how, if you're not going to sell out, most ranchers don't have the luxury of a retirement account. So it's really complicated and hard, and it's hard to have those conversations because how uncomfortable is it in a generational business to say, well, when you die, right?
Yep.
Like, then I get a chance, and knowing that you really want a chance, but obviously you don't want your parents to die.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a uncomfortable feeling, right? And it's finding a way to have those conversations without hurting each other or becoming a family feud that never talks to each other again, because that happens too, right? When we all first started talking about coming back, my brother retired from the Marines. I had just got done with culinary school. And my mom, we kind of had a like, let's have a ranch business meeting, family meeting. Let's just like get together. And we went to the bottom of the canyon. So we didn't have any cell service. We took a bottle of whiskey, which depending on your family, I either recommend or not. Either way. But we went down there and we had this like flip chart, and we said like, no wrong answers. Like if it was up to you, what does this place look like? And honestly, my brother said, I want no cows. No cows. Yeah. My dream is no cows, no fences. All I want to do is hunt and fish. I was like, oh my God. That is the absolute opposite of my dream. Like, I want no hunting, no fishing, all the nicest fences, and as many cows as we can run. All I want to do is like keep producing more grass so that we can have more cattle, and I can have excuse to have more horses and more dogs. That's all I want. And we're both kind of looking at my mom like, this is a disaster, right? Like, this is such a mistake. And it felt awful. Like, it felt like the end, right? Because we're both stubborn people, and my mom was there saying like, well, that's great that that's what you want. None of that's going to happen because I'm actually in charge and this is how I'm running this place and you still work for me. And we're all just like, whose idea was this to have voice these things out loud? Like, this is going to be the end of us. And instead of it being the end, and it's funny now, but emotions were high, right? We were like mad, and I'm like, how do you think that we could possibly, what are you, conservationists now? And you're just going to like, let the land be free? Like, you know, who's going to irrigate? Who's going to like manage this place? And he's yelling at me, you know, how are you ever going to make a dime on cows? You're just living in this like weird romantic cowboy's dream. Get over yourself. All the things. Now, today, my brother runs an outfitting business. He does amazing things like plants shrubs in places for better wildlife habitat. We have like a more robust mule deer population, and like we restored the river. So we have salmon spawning in our river again. All of those things have benefited the grass and the diversity on our place. So I'm able to run more cows in a different way. And I give him my grazing plan. He gives me his hunting schedule, and it's working.
Yeah.
It's totally working. And it started there. It started in a total wreck. And we just kept moving forward and just kept saying like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do. And like, I think that what you said there of you just kept moving forward. Like you guys, those, you can laugh about it now, but those emotions were high in that moment. You guys were, you all like have your dreams, and we're passionate about our dreams. We've been dreaming our dreams for a long time, but a lot of times those dreams are kept so internally that it's easy for us to, in a sense, like share those dreams, but be so set in them that compromise is hard, and finding that balance is hard. And that conversation, I can only imagine how that went. But it's one of those things that you look back now, and that was the defining moment of the just kind of the first domino that fell. Maybe quite a few dominoes, and maybe a little bit harder of a fall than a domino would be, maybe, you know, like a mountain crumbling. But one of those things that was the first thing that led you to where you guys are now, and led you to just continuing to move forward and move through that pain and that hurt. And can you talk a little bit more just about like moving forward through that, like using that emotion as energy to keep you moving forward?
Yeah. I think that that's what you have to do for each other, because your family's going to see you at every single stage, right? So there was a time when I came back and I wanted to make like a horse operation here, right? And so I bought a stud colt and a couple mares, and I had a registered brand and did all the things. And then honestly, I don't remember exactly which opportunity came up, but an opportunity came up. And I was like, actually, I could go to Baja for like 4 months. So
bye.
So bye, right? Like, maybe this isn't what I'm going to do. And we've all done that, right? And, or at least I have, and I've seen that happen, and holding grace for each other through that. Again, just continuing to move forward, not holding on to, well, this one time you said you were going to do this and you let me down, or then you bailed. And so I'm never going to work with you again. You just you can't do that. If you're going to work as a family together and grow together and keep adapting. And I think one of the things that really pushes us forward all the time is we know about the generations before us. We know about the huge pivots they made, and that they were just doing their best every time. I truly believe that they were just doing their best, right? And they made decisions like, you know, there was no railroad or highway here. And they had to let that happen and think of how sure they probably were that that was the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like each time that some big change happened, we know that they adapted, that they kept pushing, that they went from raising dairy cows to then, well, we're going to raise hogs now because that just doesn't make sense anymore. And now we're going to try this, and now we're going to try that. And we have all my grandparents, great grandparents, and great great grandparents' journals and letters.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so most of them's the weather, you know, um, but there's gems in there of what they did to hold on, and there's just nothing better than that as a reminder to just keep pushing, keep trying, um, keep figuring it out. We say we came from a long line of coyotes, right? And
Yeah.
if we've got to survive on something scrappier for a year, we can do it.
Yeah, I think it's that never gonna quit attitude. Like, we're the option of failing, like, we're gonna fail in certain endeavors, but we are never going to fail this ranch. We are never going to fail this land. We're never gonna get so far down that we can't get back up. And I think having that attitude and that mindset is where you start. Because if you have that mindset going into these discussions or going into taking over your family's operation or stuff like that, you're not going to fail. You're going to have that positive mindset of like, I'm going to figure it out. I don't care what gets thrown at me. We're going to figure it out. And I think that there is so much personal growth that happens there. And then also just business growth that happens there, because you guys are probably doing things differently than your mom did it. Obviously, your mom did it differently than what her parents did it. But then you're also going to be doing it differently in 10 years than what you're doing now. And I think that we have to always be open to the adaptability in the change and the way that, you know what, we are farmers and ranchers and we are like living such an amazing and blessed life. But not always is it up to our control of how the markets are doing or how beef prices are or what the weather's going to do or just different things like that.
Right. And I think that's what makes us so resilient, is because we're not in control of so many things that we depend on. We don't have control of them. And so it's just that, it's that know-how deep down inside you, you're just like, I'll just figure it out. I don't know. And the pandemic was a great example, but it's, for us, it's every year, right? Last year was too dry. So we had to pivot and do something different. The river got so low, I couldn't irrigate the bottom. So I had to send cows back to, the valley early. Cattle prices went really high. So when I was buying yearlings, my budget from the year before wasn't correct, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's never been a year or a season that went exactly as planned. And it never is for ranchers. And so we're really good at just pivoting, and I keep using that word, but just being adaptable.
Yeah.
Because we have to be. We're managing huge animals that we can't physically control. We're managing land that, we're making decisions that will affect it for thousands of years. And we don't see those, results sometimes until it's too late, and it's all kind of a big experiment. And then we don't control the weather. We barely control the market. So we're used to that. Like, you just keep working, keep figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear a little bit more about the journey of your mom kind of handing the torch over and now being in Spain and being able to go kind of live her life in that aspect and not be putting her necessarily blood, sweat, and tears into the ranch anymore. And that journey of going from, okay, you now have a piece, but then going from you have a piece to here it is. Do well.
Yeah. I think like I said, we've always been a part of it, but it was very much so, this is my mom's place, my mom's time to
Yeah.
be here. We're included, but this is her ranch. And that shift all happened on paper first, I would say. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all the things that need to happen. So we have our own LLCs. It's all under a corporation. And doing all of that stuff sometimes was a little bit hard, but it wasn't that hard. What was hard was the next thing of like, for me, figuring out how to not ask my mom's permission for everything, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out how to just make decisions and do what I want to do here, fail or not. For my mom, it was trying to figure out how to encourage and still help me without trying to boss me, right?
Yeah.
Without putting too much of that on me. And that just took so many conversations, so much communication. And when she sold her cows, that was a big step and a big time. And it's been this dance over the last 3 years, I would say, especially of this push and pull a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
of me getting frustrated and feeling like I don't have full reins yet, and her feeling pushed on, like pushed out, like I don't want her included and I don't want her advice and all these things. And all of that just comes from ego and emotion. That has nothing to do with the business. That has nothing to do with your numbers. That has nothing to do with your accountant. And yet it's the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when so I wanted to have, honestly, I wanted like this ceremonial kind of passing of the torch. We always have our customers come out every year and they have like a dinner at the ranch and a ranch tour and that whole scene. And I was like, what if we do like something cute, because they still, in all my emails, they still call me Liza Jane. Like they like can barely tell us apart in person, let alone like on the phone or on emails. It was just like nothing had happened. And I felt this need to like announce it. I want this to be mine. And that I think was unrealistic. And I think that was coming from my own pride. And the reality is that didn't need to happen. It didn't happen, but it also didn't need to happen. And how the last 3 years have gone in a much slower way than I would have wanted, I think has actually set us up for success a lot better. And there was a time last year when I called my brother and I was so frustrated. I was just like, dude, mom, we always, mom bought sheep is this one incident. I was like, she's out of control. She bought sheep. Like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I can't, where's she going to put them? This is supposed to be my grass. And I don't want to manage sheep. And now I know I'm going to be managing sheep because she's like, insane. Right. And I was just, I was really, really frustrated and just felt like she wasn't getting out of my way, right? Like, get out of the way, let it go. And my brother said, you need to humble up. You need to swallow that down, humble up, and learn from her. Just like sit back sometimes and let her slowly move through this. Let her let go as slow as she needs to and learn from her. Like, ask questions, see what she's doing. He's like, and in 2 years, if she's still buying livestock and like having puppies and doing stuff that doesn't make any sense and she's telling you what to do, I will go to bat for you 1,000%. We will like take this on. But 5 years in a 5-generation ranch is nothing for that transition time, right? So we're on year 3 of that, and I can see it. I can see how I have slowly gained confidence to make decision and make moves and manage this place in my own way. And I've seen her let go and let go and let go. We still have sheep, but we're working on that. But it really it really is a lot slower than I think the generation coming on wants it to be. And I think the generation that's there, it's too fast for them. And so you have to find that balance. And it's, again, really challenging and just takes a lot of open, raw communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things that we need those people in our lives to remind us that, hey, you need to humble yourself real quick and like give us that reality check. And then also just like that is a hard torch to hand over for people that have put their whole lives into something. And I think that it's good for us if we take a step back. That if you look at any other industry, there are people that are starting businesses that would kill. They would kill to have someone sit there with them for the first 5 years of their business and show them how it's done for free. Like to just do it and have that mentorship. And I think that we let our own pride get in the way because it's our family and because we know all of the new things that are happening in ag and we have these brains and we've seen the world and all of this stuff when in reality we have seen 20 or 30 years of this world and we have not seen the decades of this ranch. And we have seen the 3 years of this ranch, not the ebb and flow of the generations upon generations. And I think that it is reminding ourselves that use your parents as mentors. And that can be hard because they are family and because they know how to push your buttons just right. And they know how to go and buy sheep and not ask you or all of these things. But I think it's just reminding yourself that they have so much valuable information that they're not sitting down and writing an autobiography or a how-to website on how to do ranching and how to do it with your grass and your cattle and your terrain and all of these things that going slow isn't always the worst thing in the world. And that's coming from a person who would love for life to move fast. Hello, I graduated high school a semester early and did college in 2.5 years for a bachelor's. Like this is coming from a person who likes to move fast and likes to be efficient. And there is beauty in the simplicity of just like sitting back and humbling yourself, which is so much easier said than done.
Totally. But you're so right. And I'm the same way. I'm like, yeah, all in, all fast, just right now. I want whatever it is, I want it right now, and then I want the next. And that just doesn't work that way. And you know, I was born and raised on this place, so I feel like I know everything, right? I have this like, how could there possibly be something that I wouldn't know? But there is. Like there's so much. And you know, it was like turning on the main line last summer and I all of a sudden was like, I have no idea where the first riser I'm supposed to open this at is. Turns out I've never done this job. This has always been done for me. And there's so many of those, right? There's like everything from make sure that you're tracking this for your taxes and let me show you the kind of cinnamon rolls that the butcher really likes because he will give you a better deal if you show up the first Monday of the month with cinnamon rolls, you know, like all these things that are going to make me more successful and make her feel like she's set me up for success. I think the other thing that makes it really hard to let go is you're sure that you're going to get it all done and hand it over in this really pretty clean way. Right. Like, we have a cabin on the ranch and she's like, I just want to restore the cabin. And I also, you know, really wanted to fix that head gate. And I also really needed to get to that top fence. And I don't want to like hand that all over to you. I don't want to put that all on your plate. I should have all this done. I'm like, that's impossible. You're never going to be done. At some point, you have to pass on both the amazing privilege that this is to be able to work here, but also the burden. And I think as parents, you know, when I look at or think about the idea of my kids being here next, I don't want to pass the burden part onto them. You know, what if it's not financially perfect? What if the infrastructure is falling down? What if the cattle market's at the bottom? I'd want to wait another year with this false belief that it's going to be better at some point. It'll be the right time. And it's just never going to be the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is so important to remember. There's always going to be something. The market's down this year. Oh, we're in a drought this year. Oh, I still haven't fixed this, or the finances aren't perfect this year, or like all of these things. It's never going to be a perfect time. And I think that there's also this pressure with taking it over that you want to be able to properly honor the people that came before you. You want to honor your parents that built this. You want to honor your grandparents that settled on this land, or that started the cow herd, or that just gave your family that itch for agriculture. And there's a lot of pressure with that. And I think it's one of those things that because of that, you don't have to do this overnight. It doesn't have to be an overnight success. You're going to go through hardships. You're going to experience a lot of things that are going to humble you and a lot of things that are going to teach you. And I think that it's remembering that you are not a failure in that you are learning too. Like, this is the first time that this land has gone through this situation with you in charge of it. And so it's the first time that you've opened the irrigation, or that you've moved cattle up to the high country, or like things like that. Like, it's the first time that you are going through this too. And so I think you're just all learning together. And I think it's really awesome that you get to do that with your brother too. And that you each have your own things, but they coincide so well and kind of mesh in such a beautiful way. I would love to talk a little bit more about that and just how you guys kind of came to that, and like kind of his agritourism of being able to really work for the land and put all of these really great implementations in place of restoring your guys' river, and now spawning trout, and hosting agritourism, and, you know, just different hunting tours and different things like that, and kind of how it works with your side.
Yeah. Anybody who works with their sibling knows how great and how crazy hard that is, right?
Yes.
I think humor gets us through everything.
Yeah.
My brother's, he will tell you his favorite thing in the world is to call me and tell me the cows are out. It brings him like a childhood level of joy, just giggly, happy, so excited. And I prank him a lot. I get great joy out of watching him struggle too. But I think that both of us stayed true to what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we have these pictures of us as kids, and I'm always eating. Like, I always have a snack in my hand, I swear. Like, every childhood photo, all of them, I have a snack and an animal. And I have a big cowboy hat on, and I'm dirty. That's like every childhood photo of me. And James has like a gun, a fishing pole, some sort of weapon, and or like dead animal and fish, you know? And we joke that like we just never grew up. We just like, if you would have asked us what we wanted to be when we were 7, I would have said a cowboy, he would have said a fisherman, and we just never gave up on that. And so now it makes so much sense. It was hard getting here, but it makes so much sense that this land can sustain both of those kids and now
Yeah.
both of these adults, you know. He looks at this piece of land differently than I do. And that's a huge benefit, right? Because I'll look at it and I am seeing internal fences, and I'm seeing where water should go, and I'm seeing where we need to graze more of and at what time of the year this year. And I'm managing with livestock. And he's looking at it in how can wildlife exist here in the best way? Why aren't deer coming back to that hillside anymore? They used to always see deer there in the mornings, and they haven't been there all year. What's going on? And so he'll look at that and bring back a plant species that used to be there. And, you know, like, that doesn't take away from me. And what I'm doing doesn't take away from him. And all of it benefits the land. And that's what ultimately ties us together, right? Is we want to see this place better than when we found it. And because that's our goal, it doesn't matter that we get there in different ways, right? And then the reality of we both have to make a living. We both have to financially be stable to be able to be here is took some figuring too. But he really, he started when he first came back. He was taking vets on the river mostly, and then our nearby lake here. And he really has this passion for watching somebody kind of come back to themselves through hunting or fishing, and giving them that experience. And he took that fly fishing business, he built it up, and actually handed it over to my mom. So in a full circle moment here, my mom is now doing the fly fishing business. So, and my brother has moved fully into his own career that kind of stemmed from that. And he helps design weapons and gear for several different companies. And that allows him to be financially stable enough to help us on the ranch without having to take a paycheck from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's so many good points of what you said there. And I have a little brother who is 5 years younger than me. And I know that when that time comes, we used to fight like cats and dogs when we were younger. And now he's my best friend in the whole wide world. Like, I love him to death.
Oh,
but he is also the first person who is going to call me out. He is going to be the first person to insult me when like I'm wearing something different. And he's going to be like, what in the world are you wearing? Or when I was younger and still like learning how to do my makeup and stuff, he used to call me cake face. Like, he would be the first person to humble me. And so I know that when we get to that point of having our own families and going back to the ranch in our own ways and stuff like that, it's going to look very similar. And it's exciting, but also very daunting in the fact that like, oh Lordy, we're going to be in for one heck of a ride. But I know that a lot of the things that you have said today have really resonated with me and have really been like great conversation starters. I think is the biggest thing with this conversation that Adele and I have had today is it's conversation starters. Just go and start that first domino. And if it is a bottle of whiskey in the lower ridge where you have no cell service and a whiteboard or piece of paper, that's what it is for you guys. But find what works best for you. And then also like, go back. I love what you said about going back to those childhood photos, and you are doing what you would have said you were doing then. And so is your brother. And there is so much beauty in that. And I think that that's why they so cohesively work together so well. And that you guys are able to do it together well is because you're doing what you love and you're doing what makes you passionate about agriculture and about this industry and about pulling your family's legacy on to the next generation, and just all of those really phenomenal and amazing things. And I just have so thoroughly loved our conversation today. I think you and I could probably talk forever if we were given the opportunity to. We need to like make a note that don't ever put Adele and I on a no time limit, like panel or anything like that, because we literally will talk forever. It would happen. But I would just love to kind of like start to round out the episode a little bit with your one piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of agriculture. If you were sitting down with your kids today as 20-year-olds and or 30-year-olds coming over to take over the ranch, what is that piece of advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I think because of this conversation, and I feel like the kind of two threads throughout the whole thing has been to stay humble and know that you can figure this out.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. And that's okay. And that's not failure. It's nowhere near failure. But being flexible will help you adapt a lot quicker than having this perfect idea of whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether you're trying to step into that new position, whether you're trying to just come home and work for your folks. If you're whatever place, you're at in that journey, just, stay really humble and yet know that you can figure this out.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That just summed up our entire episode in one sentence. Like I know that a lot of amazing individuals coming up in the agricultural industry got something really great out of this episode. And you know what? If they didn't, I did. So I know that this conversation just was absolutely phenomenal. And thank you so much for taking some time to come on as a guest today. And I'm just so grateful for you and your voice in agriculture and what you are doing out there on your guys' family operation, and just being truly a light to share with the rest of the agricultural industry. So just thank you so much, Adele.
Thank you, Lauren.
I could sit here all day and just thank you and praise you for what you are doing.
Same. Thank you so much. I'm famous for doing this, but I'm going to add one more thing.
Yes,
my
go for it.
does this now. I tried to tell him goodbye. He goes, one more thing. But I would say I do have a piece of advice for the generation that's in place right now.
Yeah.
There is no reason to have secret recipes. Like secret ingredients or secret recipes are, I think, such a disservice. You can't take them with you. Tell your kids everything. Just let them know, whether that's the finances, whether that's literally I add a pinch of cinnamon to my pie crust. Don't hold back those things that will help them, that will set them up for success. There's just no reason to do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was the perfect little like, hey, one more thing. That is so important to remember. Yes, absolutely. That is just truly so important to remember. And I hope that if you're a young person listening to this, share this with your siblings. Hopefully this can be a conversation starter for you, and share it with your parents. If you don't know how to start this conversation, just be like, hey, go listen to this podcast. Hint, hint.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Go share with your family. Start those conversations. Yes, absolutely. And on that note, where can they find you, Adele? Where can they find like just your website? We'll have everything linked, but just kind of tell them where they can find you as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. So everything is just the number 6 ranch. So it's 6ranch.com. We're 6 ranch on Instagram. Any social media is just the number 6 ranch. You should be able to find us hopefully in lots of places if you just look that up.
Yes, absolutely. And we will have all of that linked in the caption as always. So if you are looking for some Coriani beef, or if you are just wanting to figure out a little bit, yes, and lamb now, and lamb. Can't forget about those lovely lambs. But yeah, if you're just looking for anything like that, or just want to learn more about Adele and her journey and their family's journey on the Six Ranch, please go give them a follow. We'll have all of that linked below. And thank you so much again, Adele. And thank you to everyone listening for tuning in to another episode of The Next Generation. We'll see y'all next time. Have a great one.